gets a stab at it, and DeMello knocks it right out of the air.
It gets around Rasmus Anderson, declares feet to the corner, they score! Sets up Dylan DeMello.
NHL general manager is essentially saying to Elliot Friedman and Darren Dreger, screw you guys, we're going to get this done before the deadline. The deadline is officially just under 6 days away from the National Hockey League trade deadline. He's Mitchell Clinton, I'm Jamie Thomas. Welcome to JetsTV Live Pregame Show presented by Budweiser. 3 defensemen on the move, possibly a 4th here today on a Tuesday. So far, Marco Scandella went to St. Louis, Brendan Dillon went to Washington, possibly Alec Martinez, who is from the Los Angeles Kings, not playing tonight. He could be going to the Vegas Golden Knights. But right here in this house, the Winnipeg Jets acquiring a defenseman, Dylan DeMello, for a third-round pick in the 2020 NHL Draft.
Yeah, and he won't play tonight. Oddly enough, just kind of the way this works out is the Jets start a 4-game road trip. They leave tomorrow to go to Ottawa, so he pretty much just gets to hang out in Ottawa and kind of wrap his head around the deal. But being on the conference call with him this afternoon, he sounds like a guy that's really excited. He's a defenseman that, saw his role really increase. I mean, he was part of the Erik Karlsson deal that sent Karlsson to San Jose. He was one of the guys that came back to Ottawa, and he talked about the increased opportunity he got as a member of the Senators, and the numbers really do back it up. He had about 14 minutes of ice time with the San Jose Sharks in kind of his last year with them, which was 2017-2018. You see what that's gotten up to this season, just a shade under 20 minutes. He's got 10 assists so far this season, a total of 64 points over the course of 259 NHL games. So a guy that's really going to fit well, and that fit was important for Kevin Cheveldayoff. I mean, coaches, know people and everything. You start talking about a guy like Dylan DeMello, everything that they heard about this guy was really good. And for Kevin Cheveldayoff, he said the way that the market was going, so you really couldn't wait until the trade deadline to be able to pick up a guy like Dylan DeMello. He struck while the iron was hot, and then as you could see, a number of defensemen were dealt really within minutes. So the Jets obviously excited to get him.
Nothing going, no players going back and forth.
Yeah, just a third-round pick in 2020, and that was the thing. I say just a third-round pick, but I mean, you can go through the National Hockey League and find people that were taken in the third round that are extremely valuable. So you do, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, you definitely got to weigh the pros and cons of that. He said you don't like to be sitting at the draft when the third round comes around, you're twiddling your thumbs, but there's a lot of time or a lot of things that can happen before we get to the NHL draft. I mean, just look at the Jacob Trouba trade. The Jets still ended up getting that first-round pick back that they dealt at the trade deadline.
Jets still have 4 draft picks, including their first and second round picks in the 2020 NHL Draft, which goes in Montreal. The Jets are welcoming the Los Angeles Kings. It's the 6th and final game of this season-long 6-game homestand.
Yeah.
The Kings have knocked off the Jets twice this year. For whatever reason, the Jets have had a hard time with the Kings this year.
Yeah, and I asked Kyle Connor about that actually this morning. So what is it about the Kings? He said, well, they got a pretty good goaltending performance in the second matchup. That was Jack Campbell, obviously now a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So you can wipe that clean. Toffoli obviously gets dealt to the Vancouver Canucks. Alec Martinez being held out as well. But still, they're a team that's big, that's heavy. And it won't be Jonathan Quick in goal for the Kings tonight. It'll be Peterson. So obviously a team, the Los Angeles Kings, things haven't gone the way that they would have liked this season, but I mean, they're always dangerous teams because you got veterans on that team that know how to win, and Anze Kopitar, Drew Doughty. They're not going to let any of the guys take a night off. So this isn't an easy one for the Jets tonight, although ultimately I think they will be motivated by the fact, number one, still 3 points out of a playoff spot, and 2, you'd like to get a win over these Kings.
Funny you mentioned that. Let's take a look at the wild card standings in the Western Conference. Los Angeles Kings out of it. They're not even in the discussion here for a playoff spot, but can still ruin some people's lives along the way. The Nashville Predators are at home tonight to the Carolina Hurricanes. They are tied with the Jets, 65 points. Nashville does have 2 games in hand.
Yeah, and that's obviously huge, and games in hand are only big if you can win them.
Yeah.
So obviously the Winnipeg Jets thinking the same thing with the Arizona Coyotes, and those 2 teams meet in game number 82. Wouldn't that be something if it came down to then? Jets fans would love to have it clinched before.
Yeah.
But for story writing purposes, I mean, that would kind of be fun. But obviously, yes, the Predators, of course, holding that slight edge over the Jets only in games played. But long way to go here, but it just feels like, as Paul Maurice says, you win a game, you're going to be asked how big was that win. You lose a game, how tough was that loss?
Well, it was a huge win for the Winnipeg Jets on Sunday over top of the Chicago Blackhawks. All 5 meetings this year, the Jets have fallen behind. They gave up the first goal in the game, but they really took over in the second and third periods, won that one again. But in particular, offense from the defense. In years past, Jets have got plenty of offense from the defense. This year it hasn't been really a story, but on Sunday it was.
Yeah, mostly, I mean, you can look at pretty much any stat sheet and you'll see that it's Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk doing the lion's share of that. But against the Chicago Blackhawks, there was a couple of different guys. Nathan Beaulieu gets his first as a member of the Jets, but it started much earlier. It's Beaulieu's shot here. That was his first point of the night. That's tipped by Mason Appleton. And Beaulieu talked after the game about, the scouting report says, the Chicago Blackhawks, like a lot of teams, they're going to collapse in the defensive zone. The puck's going to come back. Look at all the time Dmitry Kulikov had there. That gets tipped by Jack Roslovic. That was a big goal for the Jets. And then you look at, you can see another look at it here. Look at the time that Dmitry Kulikov had. Now, the first thing you got to do as a member of the Jets blue line is you got to get the puck through. This one goes off a stick. Andrew Kopp is net front. He's got a good position on there. No challenge for goaltender interference on that one. But the important thing that Beaulieu spoke about was, number one, this was not my prettiest goal of my career, but he'll take it, his first as a Jet. But he said the big thing that they talked about was getting it past that first layer. Once you get it past the first layer, if you have that net front presence that the Jets had, you put yourself in a good position to get those deflections and be rewarded for them.
November 2nd, 2016, the last time Nathan Beaulieu scored a game-winning goal in the National Hockey League. He was a member of the Montreal Canadiens that came against the Vancouver Canucks, so it's been quite some time for him.
Yeah.
Josh Morrissey did not have a point on Sunday, but he played his best game. Paul Maurice said so this season. Here's Josh Morrissey on the comment from the head coach.
I thought it was a good game for me. Obviously, a good game for the team as well. I think it's a big game for us in the standings, and it's either we're waking up today either I think ahead 1 point or 5. So it was a big win for us, and I thought for me I've been trying to get better and build my game, and that's what I've always been trying to do my whole career, and I feel like in the last little bit it's starting to come together.
All right, Josh Morrissey thinking things are going well and it's starting to come together for him, but it's really been coming together since the start he came into the National Hockey League. We've already shown the goals that the third line scored the other night, but this is really a great example of how good that draft was in 2015. Jansen Harkins, Jack Roslovic, and Mason Appleton.
Yeah, and Kyle Connor obviously taken that year too, but he was not on the class of 2015 line, as it seemed to be called that night. And it was big. What I thought was huge for them is obviously they've had different lengths of time in development in terms of time in the American Hockey League before they became NHL regulars. But the big thing was, and Jack Roslovic was back at center in that game. Paul Maurice was really complimentary of him in terms of how he, number one, adjusted to being back in that position, especially in the defensive zone. It's called the low 3. You're offering support for the defense. And he said that, that first couple of shifts maybe didn't go as well as those 3 would have liked. They got kind of hemmed in their defensive zone. That being said, the defensive structure was good. That was the big play there, where Jack Roslovic skates the puck in, doesn't try to make a play in the neutral zone, and then boom, Mason Appleton is able to get the Jets on the board, tying the game. That line combined for 4 points, and they've all got hands in a little bit of a different way, but Paul Maurice said, you would categorize them all as players that have good hands, but they've all got speed, and that's probably the biggest thing that they brought to the table. They used that speed to be direct with the puck, and then got to the front of the net, and they were rewarded.
Sunday night, Paul Maurice got into it a little bit about the third line, but the key part here is don't get overly excited about the Lions. Here's Paul Maurice from Sunday night.
What they did tonight to score the goals is the game that they need to play, and it's the only game they need to play. So the time to find seams, the Taves to Kane backdoor play, you get to do that after you've got all your rings lined up and your but prior to that, you need to get to the basics of the game and understand it and do it consistently. They will have 4 or 5 shifts on video to look at tomorrow where they got away from it, but they were very effective at doing it. They can do that. They can excel at that, and they can produce in this league doing that. And then what happens to them 3-4 years from now when they're playing a different style of game because they have an awful lot of experience at it. Those are 3 young guys. They were really good tonight, and they won us the game. 2 big goals, for sure. Just mindful that we're in a Canadian market. I don't want you guys having a parade just yet.
No line parades.
No line parades.
Very key term there from the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. On that note, we were watching with interest the warm-up on Sunday night because Paul Maurice said there was going to be some shuffling within his forward group. Did some shuffling in the morning or the first 2 periods, and then did a little more shuffling in the third period. How did that all work out?
Oh, real good.
Yeah.
For a team that Paul Maurice says isn't going to be an analytics darling, they were against the Chicago Blackhawks. You mentioned the secondary shuffle. That was reuniting Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler together again for the first time since really the start of the season. The reason they did that was because Chicago put Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane together. So Paul Maurice has put Scheifele and Wheeler in those defensively responsible positions, and they've been able to dominate or at least be able to defend well enough, and they did exactly that, kept them off the board. But at morning skate today, they went back to the top 6 that they started that game against Chicago with, and that's putting Kopp with Scheifele and Ehlers, and then Kyle Connor, Blake Wheeler, and Patrick Laine together as your top 6. And those top 6, both of them were in and around 60% in terms of even strength shot share. So like I said, for a team that throughout the year maybe hasn't had the advantage when it comes to shots on goal or shot attempts or anything like that, they seem to be able to do that. Now, did it light a spark under a number of them? Maybe not necessarily in the sense that, hey, you guys have to get going, but sometimes it's just a little bit of a fresh look. And Mark Scheifele and Andrew Kopp have talked about, they're 2 guys that live together. So for them, they cherish any time that they can play together. And then you add the speed of Nikolai Ehlers on that line, and a lot of good things can happen.
Paul Maurice was asked on Sunday night if putting Blake Wheeler, Nikolai Ehlers with Mark Scheifele was an effort to get 55 going. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I know you said it's not. It's one of those things for Scheifele. He's getting his chances, and when you're there's not much video that Paul Maurice has had to really go over with Mark Scheifele and say, well, you should have shot here. You kind of maybe had a look here and didn't take it. Scheifele's doing everything right. It's just a matter of getting rewarded.
Who's our player to watch tonight, or your player to watch?
The player to watch? No I in team.
That's right.
Josh Morrissey. Obviously, we talked about the kind of game that he had against the Chicago Blackhawks. Paired with Tucker Poolman again tonight, I think that's something that Morrissey is going to be involved in the offense. Maybe the offensive side of things hasn't come the way that he would like, but we always say that a good offense is going to come from a good defense, and Josh Morrissey is the type of guy that, I mean, you talk being responsible defensively. He made a big play here. This is later in the game. It's a block that prevents a 2-on-1 from turning into anything. DeBrincat was obviously coming down the other side. And then you see they get really nothing from it. Another situation here, this is Kajula coming down the side. Just a great stick from Josh Morrissey to be able to eliminate that possibility. Goes to the front of the net. Solid positionally, as he always is. This is the last time Morrissey scored. And I just have a feeling that he's going to find a way to get on the score sheet in this one against the Kings.
All right, great stuff. Also great stuff is our podcast known as Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. Download it today. Andrew Kopp is our special guest. Great stuff from the Jets centerman / winger / wherever he wants to play or wherever Paul Maurice wants him to go.
Well, and he talks a little bit about that. He talks about a bunch of things. Jacob Trouba's return, a really good story from that one. And then, of course, he's involved in something very, very close to his heart involving pets and animals, too. So give it a listen. And maybe bring some awareness to a really good cause as well.
This is a good night to sell things, as it is at Bell MTS Place. Right now, if you buy any jersey, you can receive a Heritage 3D logo cuff knit toque for free. That's up until February 29th at Jets Gear. And I believe there's one other save of the game, 40% off 2019 Heritage Classic Team Cuff Palm Knit toques.
We really just want you to keep your head warm.
Yeah, that's all. It's cold right now.
Exactly.
For a couple more days here, so get that. There's a discount on that aspect. Final thought. Jets taking on the Los Angeles Kings for the final time this year. The schedule is soft in terms of opposition. A good opportunity for points that you need in this.
Yeah, of course. And the one thing that we haven't touched on either is that Lucas Spiza won't play tonight. He's out for about a week. He'll be reevaluated over the course of the next few days. So Sami Niku is in, and whenever I think of Sami Niku, I always think of the quote that Paul Maurice had about him that surprised the head coach about Sami Niku. Maybe he's a bit of a smaller defenseman, but he really holds his own against big, heavy teams, so I'll be watching it. He had a really good run of games, then had 2 or 3 that both he and Paul Maurice didn't necessarily like from him. Curious to see how he bounces back tonight.
On behalf of Mitchell Clinton, I'm Jamie Thomas. Thanks so much for watching the Jets TV Live pregame show presented by Budweiser. We'll see you after the game when Jordy Douglas takes Mitchell's seat away for some analysis.
That's can't miss TV.
Of the Jets and Kings. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you later tonight.